Okay, hi. Everybody can hear me. My name is Goran Bokun. I'm a project manager at Inchu. Before that, I worked as a developer, as a team lead, as a consultant, product and project manager. And my golden years, I decided to spend having fun, managing Magento projects. And I do that at a company. This is not working now. Okay, I'm too far, most likely. Yeah, just a second. Okay. Play. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. I work at Inchu. I think you probably heard of us. We are a Croatian-based company specializing in e-commerce, in Magento projects. We have over 50 employees, and most of them are certified with one or the other Magento certification. Ricardo's challenge about describing your job reminded me of how my kids ask me, because all their friends say, okay, my dad bakes bread, my dad drives a bus, and they say my dad is a project manager, and all kids are going, what? So it's a bit hard to explain, so I tell them, my job is to find out what needs to be done and then help other people build something. And they're smart kids, so they ask, okay, and what happens when there are problems? And I say, well, then everybody blames me. So basically, description of my job is when there are problems, everybody blames me. And that was basically the motivation for my today's lecture. I wanted to see what are the small things, seemingly insignificant influences that have a big effect on the outcome of the project. And to talk about that, we will start with something totally relevant. We will start with this guy, Napoleon. We all know his story, his rise and then fall. We all know the story about conquest of Russia. So he started with some 680,000 men. He quickly conquered Russia, marched into Moscow. Moscow is deserted, empty. 3/4 of Moscow were burnt down by Russians. So Napoleon, fearing winter, decides to retreat. And at the end, from the whole army, only 30,000 men survived, and only 1,000 were fit for service. So basically, this is described as a great story of brilliant defensive strategy by Russian generals. Or is it? In 2001, workmen were digging trenches for telephone cables in Vilnius, Lithuania. And they found over 2,000 skeletons. Skeletons were stacked 3 on top of each other, arranged in a V shape. Analysis discovered that those were skeletons of French army from Napoleon's time. And with that discovery, the true story, the complete story of Napoleon's defeat was revealed. So we start at June 1812. Napoleon starts from Germany. In Poland, things turn bad. It's unusually hot winter. The roads are bad, and over 20,000 horses dies of thirst. No horses, no supplies. So supply lines are stretched. With supply lines being stretched, there is less food, there is less material for hygiene, and many soldiers are infested with head lice. The infestation turns out so bad that the lice, it's disgusting to imagine it, but lice are seen visible crawling on people. Lice carry typhus. And in July, 80,000 soldiers die or are incapacitated because of typhus. In August, Napoleon conquers Smolensk, but more than from battle, 105,000 men are lost to typhus. In September, in just 2 weeks, another 60,000 men are lost. After Battle of Borodino, a draw between Napoleon and Kutuzov, 1 week after, Napoleon marches into Moscow with just 90,000 men. Moscow is deserted, there are no supplies, and Napoleon says, okay, send me 15,000 reinforcements. Out of those 15,000 reinforcements in October, 10,000 die from typhus. So Napoleon sees winter is coming, I have no supplies, so I have to retreat, and starts the retreat from Moscow. And finally, in December, only 20,000 men fit for service reach Vilnius. Napoleon hears rumors about coup, so he rushes to Paris and leaves General Murat to organize the retreat. So we see military genius of Kutuzov and the coldest Russian winter and all the cannons you hear firing off in Tchaikovsky's 1812, all of them were not enough to defeat the great general. It took the smallest creature of them all, ordinary, unassuming headlights, to destroy Grand Armée. So, with that in mind, what are the small things that can influence our projects? I will offer several examples from our experience of small things that made our projects very unstable, and either we detected the problem and reacted soon enough to prevent excrement hitting the fan, or we learned the mistake the hard way. So let's start. First thing, when comments in code are bad. I believe most of us here were or are developers, so we know that sometimes what we do, we comment out large pieces of code just to work around some functionality, to do some tests, to prevent some behavior happening, or to work around some bug in Magento. I hear a lot of head scratching. What bugs in Magento? Yeah. So what happens sometimes that this commented out piece of code goes to production. And everything is fine until things are not fine. And when we have to investigate what went wrong, site is not working, then we come out to this piece of code. And then we start panic. Okay, why is it commented out? Should we remove the comment marks? Should it be included? What does it do? What is the purpose of this code? What should it do? And a lot of unanswered questions at a time where we should really be focusing on fixing the problem and not thinking what we did 3 months ago. So, lesson learned, establish proper Git branching model and stick to it for dear life. So, it sounds stupid when you say it out loud, but for keeping different versions of your code, you should use code versioning tool. Yeah. So there is a blog post called "Please don't commit commented out code." You can check it. So I was a developer. We all love to do it, but when we are checking in the code, we should keep our code clean. Example number 2: ignore crawlers at your own peril. There is a small text file on our every site called robots.txt. This file does not affect the functioning of our site, of our store. It does not change any functionality of the store. Okay. Another interesting thing about it is that it's one of the few items that we want to be different between staging and production. On staging, we want to block crawling everything on the site. And in production, we want to exclude just certain parts of certain files, certain directories. A lot of them, probably, but not everything. So because of git ignore, what happens that a developer during deploy on live can sometimes inadvertently delete robots.txt file without noticing it. In fact, nobody notices it until we get a call from the client who says their site is down. Next call is to hosting provider who is complaining that Google is bombarding the site and crashing it. So one small TXT file caused the site to go down. Lesson learned: establish post-deploy check procedure and execute it every time, however experienced you are. So our most experienced developers can make this mistake. So if we, during the launch, there are a lot of small things that we should think about. And it's easy to forget something in the heat of the moment. So if we have a simple checklist, okay, do this, do this, do this, then we will not forget it, not a single time. Example number 3, newsletters gone wild. So newsletters are a great way to informing customers about promotions, discounts, new products. We had a large customer who had enormous subscriber list, and they were sending newsletters for years without problems. The URL resulted in a very complex query, but Magento has a full-page caching, so it was not a problem to deliver the newsletter. Well, one day, somebody from marketing at client had a very reasonable idea. We should track which subscribers really open the newsletter so we can segment them better. Yeah, we can adjust the newsletter and make our conversion better. So what they did, they said, okay, I read somewhere that you can add a unique tracking ID to each URL. And then somebody know what happens. And then we can see, we can register the hit. And they implemented that way. And what happened is when you add a unique ID, you no longer have the same URL. Okay? So the page was not cached anymore. And when all the subscribers got the letter, at approximately the same time, everybody opened it, and the site crashed. Basically, the marketing guy did a DDoS attack on their own site. So, lesson learned. Establish a change request procedure. Make it simple, clear, and stick with it. So, when we operate site or when we are working on a project, there will be a lot of change requests. And when that happens, we have to know what to do. So probably, I don't know, but probably we have a new change request. Okay, somebody from development should look at it. Somebody from SEO should look at it from SEO perspective. Somebody from business should look at it. And they all have a say on it. And then we decide what's the best course of action. In this case, if one developer looked at it and said, okay, we just need to exclude this ID parameter from cache, and everything would work. So, do you see perhaps a pattern here? No, not yet. Me neither, but we'll get there. Okay. Number 4, assumptions adjust that. So we had a relatively large client, around 80,000 products, and they had a stock tracking. They managed stock with Magento on a subset of their products. And what they wanted to do is to put a message when customer orders a product, tries to order a product that's out of stock, put a small message, okay, do you want to subscribe to a notification when this product is in stock again? So in Magento has a way to do this, but if you are managing only part of your stock, what happens? All the non-managed products will get this message all the time because their stock is 0. So we were going with Magento 1, and what you do, you basically go into the core to the place where this message is checked, and you say, okay, please check if this product is managed, it has its stock managed by Magento. If no, then suppress the message. It's 30 minutes work. Then Magento 2 became a thing. And the plan was changed. We'll go with Magento 2, because why not? So, in Magento 2, you should keep your filthy little fingers away from the core. Basically, you should not extend anything. You extend a component. You should, in effect, build your own, make your own. So what we had to, because we were deep in the core and there were some other dependencies going on, what we ended up doing is reworking the whole product page. So a 30-minute work turned into 30 hours work. Add two another such examples on the same project, and you have a project deep in red. Lesson learned: check your assumptions, and then double check them. We already talked about change request procedure. Okay, going from Magento 1 to Magento 2 is a big change request, and that's an understatement. But it's not just that. It's changing the basic assumptions of our project. So we should have a list. What are the assumptions we made when we started this project, when we promised something? And then when things change, go and check, okay, is this still true? And then we can react. And most important, build a relationship of trust with the client. So when things like this happen, then we can work together and not against each other. Okay. Example 5. Who handles system administration? 4 simple words. It's such a basic thing to ask that we usually forget to ask. If you have a team that works 10 times the same way on a project, 11th time they forget to ask. So we had a client where we did all the Magento stuff, and everybody assumed, we assumed, that the hosting provider will do the server-side sub-permissions and all the server-side that's needed to be done. And everything seemed to work fine on the project until we needed to launch. And we had a bit specific procedure to do it. So we take the old site down, we push new code, we check the site, it's old site. Okay, did we forget to merge? Did we push the wrong branch? Let's do it again. Bring the site down, push, check the code. Okay, yeah, it's the real code. Push the code, bring it up, it's the old site. So the F words start flying around, and we check what's happening, and we see, okay, nobody did the server side correctly. Why? We call the hosting, they say, we don't do that. They are not prepared for it. They don't know what they have to do. We don't have all the access rights and all the procedures and scripts to do the stuff that's needed. Then we get a call from the client. And they're actually confused. They're confused because they don't know who should they yell at to fix the problem. So, lesson learned, know thy scope in more details than you think you'd need. Ask questions, ask a lot of questions. Make a checklist for your sales team who are speaking with the client from the beginning. Make an onboarding procedure for your client who will then know how to behave on your project and what they can expect. When you do a handover from sales to the dev team to project manager, make a list of all the things that should be known by them and go through them. So I'm saying make a lot of checklists because we don't have our astronaut anymore here, yeah? He's somewhere around. Because we are launching the site. I think of us like an astronaut and mission control. And what do in all the movies and in reality, what does NASA do? Everybody has a checklist. Valve 3, position 5, check. Ignition, position on, check. Launch, check. And after the launch, again, is everything okay? We have a checklist. So it's the most simple, the simplest, easiest way to ensure that we don't forget anything. When we are at ease, we make the checklist, and then in the heat of the moment, we have something to rely on. Okay. And the next one, clash of personalities. So we all know that establishing a good rapport with the client is crucial. Everybody knows that. And yet, when the project heats up, we stop worrying about every word we write or every word we say to the client. And if the personalities and communication styles of clients and vendor, us, agency, are not in sync, then things can turn south really quickly. We had a project with fantastic lead developer who was managing the project, great technical skills, great communication skills, did a ton of projects successfully, but came to one client where they simply did not understand each other. Every email turned it into a fight and argument. Every Skype conversation was finished without any conclusion. So we were lucky to recognize this soon enough, so we exchanged the lead, exchanged the contact person to the client, and managed to save the project. So lesson learned, know the client and adapt your communication to the client. So think about the way, how does the client think? Are they technical or not? Do they like formal communication or informal communication? Do they like to chat a lot or write a lot of emails? How do they think? What things are important to them? Some small design issues, or we should just do it ourselves. So basically, in PM speak, do a stakeholder analysis and use it as an input to create your communication matrix. If anybody did a PMI, they know what I'm speaking about. The rest of you are lucky, if you don't know. Okay, so if 6 is not enough, we could talk about the time when client thought something is irrelevant or easy. Oh, few months into project, yes, we do have an automated order management, but it's just one button on the GUI. For sure, it's not difficult to implement one button. Or now that you mention it, we do have multiple stores, but it's just configuration in Magento. No problem. Or the time where we forgot that we need third-party support, or we did not include all stakeholders from the client side, because nobody likes Mary from accounting, but Mary from accounting is the only person who knows how the ordering workflow goes, and without her, we implemented it the wrong way. We spoke already about the times when client does not understand our process, or for example, when client is too detailed and we spend all their budget on planning phase without building anything. So we need to detect it and act before that happens. Or I'm afraid to speak about it for this audience. When we read on the site, our extensions works with Magento 2 Scout Sonar, and we forget to read the fine print. And not because the extension does something bad, but because we did our own customizations, and we have several extensions who all work a bit differently, so they do not work correctly. So checking those things in advance can save us a lot of trouble. But I think from all these examples, we may have detected a pattern. So there were more technical and less technical problems. But the lesson learned and the solution was not technical. It was better process, better communication, better organization, basically better project management. And even Marius perhaps will agree with me that if you have technically competent team, as we all here do, technical issues, whether coming from Magento side or coming from our client, are all solvable. But if we screw up in communication with client, if we screw up in the definition of requirements, if we screw up in the way we do our work, then those mistakes are very hard to fix. And all such mistakes, all lessons learned, I said, seem so obvious that it's painful to say them out loud. But they are forgotten over and over again, and we must correct those mistakes over and over again. That's why it's good to tell them out loud. So instead of asking questions, perhaps it would better be that you share an example or two of a situation where some small, insignificant thing had a big effect on your problem. But before that, I almost forgot, you know those skeletons in Vilnius? That was not a mass grave. They were not digging and burying the bodies. The ground was too frozen to dig. The ground was too frozen to dig, so they could not dig trenches. They used bodies, corpses of their friends to build a breastwork, a shield, a barricade to protect them from advancing Russian army. Don't let that happen to you because you forgot about the small things. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any examples to share? I shared 6 very painful ones. Over beer, okay.
So I have a theoretical question for you. Which would be better, or assuming it would be better for you as a project manager, to have a poorly planned project with a very high budget and a risk including budget, or a very well planned project with a tight budget?
Very well planned project, but depending on the team. So if the team is good, they can adapt to circumstances, and if we have good plan, we can change the plan easily. If we have bad plan, no changes to the plan will help, and no heroes from the team will help.
Yeah. Well, I have an example of one project that, there are cases in which we, sometimes I included some not very well qualified resources on a project. And although the other team members were very skilled and everything went well, at the end of the project there were, a few negative feedbacks that the client threw back at us, and one of that was the only minor thing that the junior developer worked on. So, yeah, at the end, the general impression, regardless of the fact that, we delivered the project in time, in budget and everything was done perfectly well, we had that, minor thing that, put us in a bad light, and at the end, the minor thing actually mattered in our case. Yeah.
Yes. True.
Okay, thank you very much. It was very nice.